history. I will change 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 history. That will be the most beautiful day.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in this evening for our Ukraine War Report for the 26th of May, 2022. Big shout out to everybody that is tuning in this evening. I see quite a few familiar faces, as well as a few new people tuning in. Timmy, I see you there. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. Again, it's really awesome to see a few new folks out there. Big shout out to Kender. Longtime channel member. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Mimi, thank you so much for the super chat there. Says, God bless Nemico. Highly appreciated. Jenny McGowan, so glad to see you also with the super chat there. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. To everybody, every single one of you guys, thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here tonight, to get filled in on what's going on in this ongoing and very bloody conflict which is happening in Ukraine. Not just Ukraine, arguably, but many different regions. We have Transnistria, that breakaway region of Moldova, and the fight has now also been brought to regions in Russia as well, as there has been many strikes there over recent weeks. So again, this is a much broader conflict now, and not just occurring in Ukraine, however, primarily still occurring in Ukraine here. We're going to start with our main headlines tonight, as usual, and then we'll switch into our community aggregated reporting from our situation room after that, and then we'll get into our open source reporting towards the end of the show. As usual, we'll go through all of the individual reports, what's going on the ground for about the past 12 to 24 hours. And then we'll end off the show with our community questions and answers, or a little bit of a Q&A there from the live chats and from the chats over on Discord as well. To all of you guys that are tuning in to this evening, if you haven't already, hit the like button. Best way to get notified. Hit the like button. Best way to get the algorithm's attention. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Best way to get notified when new streams and videos go live. So, a few moments ago, I mentioned very briefly that this fight is dragging on here in Ukraine, and has branched out into a few other places as well, as we've reported on over the recent weeks here. We've seen events occur in both Moldova, in that breakaway region, in Transnistria, in Russia, a lot of areas in Russia, and as well as we've seen some activity in Belarus as well over the recent months. And so this is a much broader conflict now, but as has been kind of the pattern here we've seen over the past week or two of reporting, the fighting in the east is where it is most intense. Where the conflict is most intense is the east of Ukraine. All right. Main headline for this evening, to start us off, as we have all of the reports from this week and last week. We've started off with, this big headline, this big fact that the fighting in the east right now in its current phase has reached what they're calling the most active phase of conflict that we've seen since the beginning of the war. The most constant fighting, the most constant bombardment is occurring right now as we speak, as we bring you guys this report this evening, is occurring in the east of the country. So again, we're going to start with our main headlines tonight. I'm going to go over a few of our key topics here, but I just wanted to reiterate that. That's the main thing that people need to be focusing on, is just the overwhelming amount of conflict that is happening in the east of the country right now, as Russia looks to capture a few of these key locations, and as those Ukrainian forces look to repel the invading Russian forces in that region. So our main headline topics for this time, I'm going to start going through them here. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Moscow would help efforts to overcome global food shortages in return for sanctions relief. I know I've talked about this kind of global food crisis that has been developing over recent months here, directly caused by the events that are occurring in Ukraine. According to a Kremlin readout from his phone call with Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, the British foreign minister swiftly responded that, quote, Putin is trying to hold the world to ransom. Western powers accuse Russia of blocking key Ukrainian exports like wheat from access to ports currently under the control of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. We've talked about that many times on the show in recent weeks. Yet, Russian fertilizer and grain sales have also been snagged by sanctions, a contributing factor to rising world food prices. I know I touched on this in one of my reports from earlier this week, talking about directly to you guys in the live chat. Everywhere, from every country that I've had viewers tuning in from, we've seen an increase in food prices on the shelves in your local grocery stores. This is directly related to what I spoke about earlier in the week. 12%, about a calculated 12% of your daily caloric intake comes from Ukraine. 12% of your daily calories. And so the reason those prices are higher is because those 12% of your daily calories, of everybody's daily calories, have now been locked up in ports along the Black Sea there by those Russian forces. They've been, again, they're not going anywhere. They're not being exported, and so that missing food, you got things like sunflower oil, grain, all of those exports are sitting there, not going anywhere and not going to countries that need them, countries that already had an unstable food situation to begin with. And so now that's only being exacerbated by what is occurring here in Ukraine. I'll reiterate here, Russian fertilizer and grain sales have also been snagged by the sanctions. So not only is everybody else being hurt by this, but Russia is being hurt by this as well. Again, they're not able to get their grain and their fertilizer out to countries that they would usually be selling those goods to. Again, battling in the eastern Ukraine, as I opened with here, it remains, quote, an active kinetic fight, not a stalemate. Again, this came from a statement from a senior U.S. defense official earlier today. Ukraine's deputy defense minister described the fighting as reaching a, quote, maximum intensity. I talked about this a few times over recent weeks, how I would say not recent weeks, but probably the past week or so, how it was starting to be, a lot of people were referring to the fighting in the east as a stalemate. Okay? There was no progress being made on either side. To use that word is, I would say, now definitely from what we've seen over the past, 48 to 72 hours, I would not call it a stalemate, and that's what these senior U.S. defense officials are saying as well. Again, that Ukrainian deputy defense minister describing the fighting as reaching a maximum intensity. Again, Russia has continued to make incremental gains, sending smaller units to go after smaller towns in the East's Donbass region, according to the Pentagon. This is from earlier today. Again, they've in recent weeks called that progress anemic, meaning they'll go and they'll take a town, and then a few hours later, the Ukrainians stroll right back in there and take it over as if nothing happened. All right, they're able to quickly take back this territory. The Russians move in. They might capture the town for an hour, sometimes a matter of hours, sometimes a day, and then the Ukrainians literally steamroll right back in and are able to take over those towns very quickly. I've seen a pattern here of the Russians. They move in, they take over a town, and you see it posted on a Telegram channel. You see it posted on a Russian news outlet somewhere. You see it posted, again, Telegram is the main place I've seen a lot of this stuff from these pro-Russian sources. You'll see them capture a town, and then they post about it on Telegram, and then 2 hours later, the town is back in Ukrainian hands. Right? Like as if they're trying to send these images home. That's, honestly, speculation on my part, but it feels that way. It feels definitely more part of the propaganda machine than real strategy, than real territorial gains on the ground in Ukraine. Like, they'll move to take over some of these small towns. They'll post about it on Telegram. They'll send these images home on Russian media, on Russian news. People can see, oh, they've taken over this town. And then a few hours later, the town's back in Ukrainian hands. Those Russian forces have retreated. And we've seen a constant pattern of this activity. That's why for a while they were starting to call it anemic progress. In the past, I would say 48 to 72 hours. I would say even up to the past 7 days, we've seen an incremental shift here. The ramping up, so to speak, of the amount of kinetic bombardment, of the amount of back and forth fighting that is happening. Over the past few months, you might see, breaks. At some periods during the day, you would see breaks in the fighting. Over the past 72 hours in the east, in a lot of places, it's been constant, absolutely constant fighting on both sides here. Again, incremental gains, sending smaller units to go after smaller towns in the East's Donbass region. Again, that was according to the Pentagon earlier. So they're trying to take smaller targets using smaller units. The U.S. officials added that 85 howitzers were now in Ukraine, and over 400 Ukrainian soldiers were trained to use them. In Ukraine's northeast, meanwhile, a governor said Russia was shelling and hitting civilians in Kharkiv. Again, Russia has proven that if they can't have it, they will start to bombard it. And that is exactly what we're seeing here as they've pulled out of Kharkiv over recent weeks. Now we have seen an uptick in the amount of shellings in those outlying areas, missile attacks, etc. A lot of those, unfortunately, hitting civilian targets. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky sharply criticized suggestions by former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. I know I talked about this on it was our last report or the report before last, again, that Ukraine should cede some territory to Russia as a way to end the war. Again, speaking in his nightly address, Zelensky basically said he blew back at Kissinger here, saying, emerging from the deep past and saying that a piece of Ukraine should be given to Russia, to Kissinger, who turns 99 on Friday, called for a Russia-Ukraine peace negotiation to start within the next 2 months, again saying that they should cede some territory to Russia. Again, he also suggested the two sides return to the status quo before Russia's February invasion, when Russia already controlled parts of eastern and southern Ukraine. Zelensky compared Kissinger's remarks to Europe's appeasement of Nazi Germany before World War II. So again, really firing back at that former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, after those statements that he made earlier in the week. Again, Putin portrayed the fight of foreign companies as a win. I know I've been talking about many companies like McDonald's, a lot of these fast food chains moving out of Russia, ceasing to do business there. He said earlier today that it's for the best, quote, it's for the best, that Russia could fill their niches with their own restaurants. Starbucks and McDonald's are among the major companies that have left. Speaking via video to a regional economic forum, Putin also insisted Russia has grown stronger due to Western sanctions. The Kremlin's own economists have painted a more dire picture of the sanctions as the sanctions continue to bite, of the sanctions as they continue to persist here as this war goes on. Again, that damage only begins to compile. Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin became the latest leader to visit Ukraine. She met with President Vladimir Zelensky in Kiev and visited Irpin and Bucha, many of those towns that were very heavily hit by those Russian forces in the initial weeks of the war. Concerned by neighboring Russia's aggression, Finland applied to join NATO earlier this month. French President Emmanuel Macron had a phone call Thursday with Turkish President and urged him to drop a threat to veto Finland's bid to join the alliance. I know the Turks, the Turkish government there has been quite opposed to those countries joining NATO. Another major headline from today, Zelensky stating he wants more multiple rocket launch systems. I know I've talked about those MLRS systems multiple times on the show. They come in many different forms. He's now asking for more of those units to be sent in. And it's interesting because we had this article come through earlier today from Associated Press talking about, his plea here for them to send more of these weapon systems to Ukraine. And I also have some follow-up reports that we're going to get into when we get to our community aggregated reports later this evening. So that's going to be interesting. So let's stay tuned for that. But I'll read you the quote here, the direct quote from this report. "We are fighting for Ukraine to be provided with all of the weapons needed to change the nature of the fighting and start moving faster and more confidently towards the expulsion of the occupiers," Zelensky said in his nightly video address to the nation, as reported by Associated Press. He said Russian forces are wiping some eastern towns from the face of the earth, and the region could end up, quote, uninhabited. Quote, "They want to turn Popsana, Bakhmut, Liman, Lysychansk, and Severodonetsk into ashes, as they did with Volonovka and Mariupol," Zelensky said. In the shelling Thursday of Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, Zelensky said at least 9 people were killed and 19 were wounded. Among those killed was a 5-month-old baby, and the infant's father was the child's with the child's mother, and the infant's father and with the child's mother seriously injured. Zelensky also had harsh words for members of the European Union who are resisting imposing even tougher sanctions on Russia, including a ban on the import of Russian oil and gas. Again, the major source of revenue for the Kremlin, for Moscow. Again, to go into a little bit more detail about that Kharkiv attack from earlier today, 9 killed, including a baby, in what they're calling a dense shelling of a Kharkiv residential area. 9 people, including a 5-month-old baby, were killed on Thursday amid dense shelling on residential areas near the city center, according to the head of the Kharkiv regional military administration. Among those killed was, quote, a family who was simply walking down the street. A man was holding his 5-month-old baby in his hands, whom he died holding. The mother of this baby is seriously wounded and is now in the hospital. Again, coming from that head of that regional military administration there in Kharkiv. I believe his name is Ole Sinabulov. Again, I'm not sure if I'm totally correctly pronouncing that there, but he also said he described the artillery used and said the targeting of the residential areas in Ukraine's second largest city could only be for the purpose of, quote, terrorizing local residents. That was his quote there, terrorizing local residents, saying the enemy shelled with MLRS Smerch and URAGAN with artillery, modification of which is being established now by our military experts. According to the available data, the shelling was conducted from the north of the oblast, where our troops are holding their positions and slowly pushing the enemy away to the borders. This was a solely residential area, so the aim of this shelling could only be to terrorize local residents, he added. He also said that as of now, our armed forces holding their positions firmly, and there's no question about possible seizure of the city of Kharkiv. Again, so earlier today, and kind of an add-on from that other report about Zelensky requesting those multiple rocket launch systems, we have another report here from earlier today talking about how the U.S. is preparing to approve long-range rocket systems as it becomes Ukraine's top request. Again, Ukraine's most urgent need is for multiple launch rocket systems MLRS to counter Russian superiority in heavy weaponry. The military situation in the eastern regions is, quote, as dire as people say, even worse than people say. Khalifa, the foreign minister there, Dmytro Kuleba, said Thursday in a Twitter live Q&A from Poland. The only response that would work, he said, was, quote, with more heavy weapons. Without these, we won't be able to push them back. He called Washington's decision on this, quote, crucial. In more of a kind of a deeper spin here on what's going on, kind of a deeper dive here on what's going on in the east, specifically the east of the country. In a report from earlier today, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have been processed through a series of Russian filtration camps in eastern Ukraine and sent into Russia as part of a systemized program of forced removal, according to 4 sources familiar with the latest Western intelligence, an estimate far higher than U.S. officials have publicly disclosed. After being detained in camps operated by Russian intelligence officials, many Ukrainians are then forcibly relocated to economically depressed areas in Russia. In some cases, thousands of miles from their homes, and often left with no means of returning. Although some Ukrainians have voluntarily entered filtration camps to try to escape the fighting by entering Russia, many have been picked up against their will at checkpoints and in bomb shelters. After spending an average of around 3 weeks at camps, where sources and eyewitnesses say they are held in inhuman conditions, interrogated, and sometimes tortured, some are sent across the border into Russia and given state documentation. From checkpoints in Rostov and other Russian towns, many Ukrainians are then relocated to far-flung corners across Russia, the sources said. In some cases, Ukrainians have been sent to Sakhalin Island, a distant spit in the Pacific Ocean on Russia's far east, 10,000 miles from the Ukrainian border. If they are fortunate, sources tell reporters, Russia will provide housing in residential areas and perhaps a Russian SIM card and a small amount of money. Again, that concludes our primary key topic headlines for this evening. We're now going to switch over into our community aggregated reports from about the past 12 to 24 hours. Again, I would really like to thank everybody that has stopped by this evening to join us for tonight's report to get updated on what is going on in Ukraine. Again, keep in mind we will be having a questions and answers at the end of the show. I'll be taking people's comments and taking people's questions in the live chat at the end of the show. So we just went through our primary headlines for about the past 24 hours, stretching back into the past 48. We're now going to take a deep dive here through our community aggregated reports from our situation room over on the Discord server. These are reports that have been aggregated by our community members, by our intel analysts, by our radar analysts, our naval guys, our radio guys, all of you people that are hard at work over there in the Discord server. Night after night, day after day, to all of you guys, thank you so much for continuing to contribute. To each and every one of you guys, you deserve a big round of applause. You guys are the ones that make this reporting possible. We're going to switch over into the Situation Room. And again, because we're not going to be having a report tomorrow for Friday, we're going to be taking a long weekend. It's a Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. For everybody here in the U.S., happy Memorial Day to all of you. It's a big holiday for me specifically. I'm a big fireworks guy, and we celebrate it every year. So we have a little trip planned, and so we're going to be taking a few days off here over the weekend. We should be back for a report Tuesday. I will be on call in case anything big goes down and we need to get on to report it to you guys. I will be on call, and so I will have a system set up in place that I can bring you guys some live audio reports in the event that something occurs and I need to bring you guys that information. After I get back, I think Tuesday we're going to be having a report, and then next week the reports are going to be a little bit sporadic as well. And so to make up for it tonight, we're going to be going not just through today's reports, but I'm also going to dip into a little bit of yesterday's reports from the Situation Room. And we'll be going through as many as I can tonight. I'm going to try to cover as many as I can of these community aggregated reports. I know quite a few of you guys have been posting in there over the past few days. There's quite a lot of good information I want to bring you guys this evening. For those of you that are here for the open source reports that want to go through all of the intricate individual events that have happened over the past 12 to 24 hours, stay tuned. After we're done with our community aggregated reports here, we will be hopping into those open source reports. Before we start, again, if you'd like to join the Discord server, you can find a link to that in the description below, discord.gg/Nemico. Everybody is welcome to join. If you would like to contribute information or reports to the Situation Room to be mentioned on these nightly reports, you can provide those in the Situation Room over on the Discord server. Make sure to pick up your proper ranks first in the Welcome channel. If you would like to hop over there and follow along with the reports I'm about to bring you guys, you can do so now by hopping over into the Situation Room, and you'll be able to follow along as we read some of these reports from the Situation Room channel. If you'd like to get probably the best, I say this quite often, I probably sound like a broken record, but probably one of the best, if not the best, resources for up-to-date information, for up-to-date reports on what is going on in this conflict, not just in Ukraine, but on kind of a broader level here in the region. Best place, I think, in my opinion, to do that is over on the Situation Room. That's where I personally stay up to date on what's going on. I look there every day to see the community aggregated reports that people are posting and get a really good idea of kind of what is happening. It's a very valuable resource, especially when events are breaking. When we have breaking news, you can often run to the Situation Room, and you'll be able to see 5 different posts from places, Twitter sources, Telegram, sometimes even more mainstream news sources as well. Sometimes you have posts there from our open source intel sources. It's a very valuable resource, so I highly recommend it to anybody that is looking for a better way of getting that information. All right, so our first post this evening comes from Max West, who just slipped this in here in the past. I'm going from the bottom up. I'm going from the most recent. I just had actually 2 more just come in as well. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and we'll work our way up. Keep in mind, I do occasionally skip a few. If there's ones that just aren't relevant, or if there's ones that that we don't have time to get into, sometimes for videos and stuff. Again, we might skip some of those. We don't go through all of them, but tonight especially, I'm going to try to get through as many as we can humanly possible. All right, our first post here comes from Max West on the Situation Room. Thank you, Max. He's posted quite a few tonight, so we're going to have some. Usually, I only read 1 post from a user, but tonight I'll read a few from each user. So our first coming from Max West, and I'm going to switch over to our main screen here, guys, just so we can get a better view on what's going on. Let's do that now. All right, so. First post here coming from Max West, posted by The Guardian. Talking about coffins in Buryata. Ukraine's invasion takes a toll on Russia's remote regions. Okay, so first of all, let's get The Guardian's privacy policy out of there. Thank you. I'll read you guys, when I get articles like this, I usually read about the first few paragraphs, and then if you would like to read the whole article, I encourage you to go and do so yourself. I'll read a few parts of this here. Holding smoking incense sticks and singing hymns, a group of Buddhist monks sat in front of the open coffins of 4 Russian soldiers killed in fighting in Ukraine as hundreds of mourners gathered on Monday at a local sports center in Ulan-Ude, the capital of the remote Buryata region in Russia's far east. Quote, "We are distraught. This bloodshed needs to stop. Our boys are dying," said Olga Oldieva, our sister-in-law of Bolat Odiev, one of the 4 soldiers being buried. Again, Odiev, who joined the military 10 years ago, was killed in battle outside of Kiev on the 15th of March, nearly 4,000 miles away from his hometown. Quote, saying, "He just didn't want to let his team down. He felt it was his duty to go," Olga said hours after the funeral finished. Quote, "Our family opinion on this differs from the one held by authorities, but what can we do?" So again, these are words of dissent here. Basically, these are blatant words of dissent here. Again, coming from citizens located inside of Russia. This is an excellent example of that. Another quote I think is important here that I'll read. I was about to click out, but I think there's a quote here that is important. They say, "It is becoming clear that a lot of the soldiers who are dying are from the poorer ethnic minority republics in Russia, like Buryata, Kalmykia, and Dagestan," said Pavel Luzin, a Russian military expert. Again, so that is very interesting statement there. Again, thank you to Max West for posting this in the Situation Room. Our next post this evening comes from HM Producer 12. This is a video. Usually, if I see clips like this taken from cam streams, I usually skip them. But I will, especially since HM is a long-time contributor here in the community. Thank you so much, by the way. And it is a smaller clip here. So I don't know if you guys were here. Last week we had a little stream. There was a day where I was having some issues with the stream, so we did a music stream. We set the stream up as a fundraiser and through UNICEF, and we were able to just have a music stream going all day. We were taking requests, copyrighted tracks, whatever. We were playing everything, and we called it the Taking Back the Z Square here, Taking Back the Z Cam stream. That's what we were. It's a little unofficial nickname there. We had a dude dancing up on top of the Z you see here on screen. I set that up on stream. We had kind of like some fire burning there, and we were blasting tunes. It was a good time. It was a real good time. And it was funny because a few days later, the Ukrainian citizens came and they took back this C Square. And again, it's interesting here, and I'm glad to see this occur. I'm going to scroll forward here, and okay, so there it is there. Okay, so all right, we're going to start here at about the 4-minute mark. We'll pull ahead a little bit more. Okay, there we go. All right, so you can see, you'll see some citizens here. They walk out, and you'll begin to see them starting to take down the sign here. HM Producer says it's long, but you see them walk away with it. So you see they're taking it down. This has been up for weeks. Yeah, for weeks that has been up. And they finally came through there. I don't know if these are just two random citizens or are these officials, town officials, that are here doing this. Again, this is in the town of Makivka. And it's been one of our main cameras on our stream for quite a while. So you can see them taking it down there and tipping it over. And then they walk away with it. Yeah. Let's see this here. I want to see them walk away with it. It makes me wonder, was this taken down by city officials, or is this two random guys who are just like, I'm taking this freaking thing down? All right, you can see them there, lifted it up, and away it goes. There we go. There goes the Russian Z sign. Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you, HM Producer, for posting that in the Situation Room. LD429 says, I think it's just two random dudes. Yeah, it could be. Our next post here, again, comes from Max West. Thank you, Max, for posting this. Also, really quickly, again, thank you to HM Producer for posting that video for us. This next post here comes from Max West, posted by Danilo Marizik, a verified Twitter source here, saying, I spent my day talking to witnesses of the Russian war crimes in villages near Kiev. Now, I come back to reading news about some leaders stalling weapons deliveries to Ukraine or some intellectuals' opinions on how to appease Putin. I'm not angry or frustrated. I'm in disbelief. I believe he's he's referring to leaders here in the West that have, again, wanting to stall those weapon deliveries to Ukraine. And I think he's speaking about Kissinger, figures like Kissinger who made those remarks about how Ukraine should cede territory. Something that President Zelensky and the Ukrainians have multiple times said is not an option. Again, thank you for posting that, Max West. Much appreciated. Our next post here, again, comes from Max West. This comes from Konstantin on Twitter, a unverified Twitter source. German government still doesn't dare to step up in its pace to prevent the Russian advances in the east. So let's talk about the German industry is ready since months now to immediately deliver hundreds of Leopard 1 tanks, Marder APC, and other equipment. The German government actively blocks this delivery with arguments that are officially proven to be wrong. Our oil and energy payments actively finance Russia's war machine. Why do we maintain this German government, with Scholz as chancellor, that makes itself complicit with Putin? Interesting report there. Our next post here comes from Lords of Acid on the Discord server. Lords of Acid has been a long-time contributor. This is a update from the report from earlier. So earlier, I reported that Zelensky had requested the MLRS systems, and that the U.S. and I had a report that the U.S. was considering that. Reports now that the U.S. is preparing to approve the supply of HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems to Ukraine. This comes from Conflict News on Twitter here. Again, that is the HIMARS there. Some speculate that the U.S. plans to supply M142 HIMARS rocket artillery to Ukraine. This is yet unconfirmed, and even if so, implementation, meaning the personnel training, would take time. But how might it affect their ability to hit Russian strategic targets? Very interesting report there coming from Lords of Acid. Our next report also comes from Lords of Acid, and we have actually three. Yeah, we have three of them here. So our next one here is from Ukrainska Pravda in English on Twitter. It says the Russians are attacking Severodonetsk. Heavy fighting continues. This was posted at 4 p.m. Eastern Time today. Another post here coming from Lords. This comes from Canadian-Ukrainian volunteer, unverified, on Twitter. Early reports indicate that the city of Liman has been lost to the Russians. ZSU forces fought a rearguard action while retreating to previously reinforced positions. The fighting continues on the outskirts of the city at this time. Glory to Ukraine. This came at 4:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stevie Gregory says, that's a step up, Nemico. Those are USA missile systems. That is indeed very true. Russia has been heavily using their MLRS systems since the war began. And so I believe the Ukrainians need a few of those MLRS systems as well. Our next post this evening comes from Carbon. He mentioned here that the original source was New Week. Article is linked in the post. Thank you, Carbon, for adding that clarity there. This comes from Navy Lookout on Twitter, unverified, but it does come from Newsweek.com, so keep that in mind. There is a source link there. We can take a look at the article if need be. U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency assesses that less than 40% of Russian missiles fired during the war in Ukraine have hit their intended targets. 20 to 30% fail to launch or crash in flight, and many miss aiming points. And Lords of Acid actually had mentioned below that post saying V-2 rockets from World War II were about 42% accurate. So that's interesting. Very interesting report there coming from Carbon. Thank you so much for posting that in the Situation Room on the Discord server. Again, to everybody tuning in this evening, we're currently going through our community aggregated reports over on the Situation Room for about the past 12 to 24 hours. Again, everybody updated on what is going on the ground in Ukraine. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Javelin the like button, if that's what we've been calling that the past few days, what we've been calling it the past few days. You can javelin that like button. Best way to get the algorithm's attention. Best way to penetrate the armor-laden steel of that algorithm. Our next post here, I should say. I combined those two words there. We got repost. Could be a new one. Again, this comes from Sinoan. Sionan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I believe I am. Sionan. You've posted a few times before. This comes from finance.yahoo.com. Seems Sionan is a Canadian. It says here we got a Canadian version of Yahoo Finance. Well, hello to you, Sionan from Canada. Thank you so much for posting this in the Situation Room today. Again, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky pleaded with the West on Thursday to send multiple launch rocket systems to Ukraine as soon as possible to give it a chance against Russian offensive in the eastern Donbass, as we've reported many times this evening. Quote, "We are fighting for Ukraine to be provided with all weapons needed to change the nature of the fighting and start moving faster and more confidently towards the expulsion of the occupiers." Again, this is basically the same from what I reported earlier. Sionan asks, is NATO sending them too? Along with that post that he left there. That is a good question. Yeah, so far I have not heard any reports of MLRS systems coming from any, like directly from NATO countries in Europe, but I would consider the U.S. as part of NATO. And so I guess, in that regard, you could say, yeah, that they are definitely sending some of those MLRS systems. Our next post here comes from a longtime contributor, longtime viewer, Common Fishbowl. Thank you so much, Fishbowl, for posting this. This comes from CNN. Talks about China's support of Putin and how it should raise alarm bells here in the United States. Common Fishbowl actually left us a quote here, kind of a little bit of a piece here from this article that I will read. Even while Russia was clearly mobilizing to invade Ukraine, President Xi and President Putin declared that the friendship between their countries was, and I quote, without limits, Blinken said in a speech on the Biden administration's policy towards China at George Washington University. Again, thank you to Common Fishbowl for posting this article over in the Situation Room. If you guys would like to read that full article, again, you can find that in the Situation Room on the Discord server. Our next post here comes from Sionan, posted by Reuters, talking about how Russian forces edge closer to encircling Ukraine troops in the east. I know we've talked about that pincer movement that they've been trying to enact there for quite some time. Ukraine, May 26th, advancing Russian forces came closer to surrounding Ukrainian troops in the east, briefly seizing positions on the last highway out of a crucial part of Ukrainian-held cities before being beaten back, a Ukrainian official said on Thursday. 3 months into its invasion of Ukraine, Russia has abandoned its assault on the capital city of Kiev and is trying to consolidate control of the industrial eastern Donbass region, where it has backed a separatist revolt since the year of 2014. I know I've talked about this for quite some time. A lot of new people that are following along with the war, all right, that are following along with this news. A lot of them aren't aware that this war does stretch back quite some time. Some would argue even prior to 2014. Mother Saki says, we need to send about 1,000 MLRS systems. I agree. I think also maybe sending some personnel from another country, sending personnel that can train on those systems would be probably smart. Get people there on the ground that can actively be training people very quickly on how to use these systems. Get guys that might have already used MLRS systems, similar systems. Get guys that are maybe, are our artillery, artillery operators. Get those guys to operate these systems. Get those guys training. I think that might be a good idea for those Ukrainian forces. Get them on the battlefield as quickly as possible. Not months from now, but in days and weeks, if possible. Our next post here also comes from Sayonan. This comes from AP News. Again, this is actually, this is the exact article I read you guys at the beginning of the show. Again, with him pleading for those multiple rocket-launched artillery systems. Our next post here comes from Frasier. This is a post from abc.net.australia. Talk about how U.S. and Japanese warplanes in show of strength following North Korean missile launches. Thank you, Frasier, for posting this on the Discord server on the Situation Room. I'll read you a few paragraphs from this article. U.S. jet fighters have joined Japanese warplanes in a show of strength a day after North Korea launched a ballistic missiles into the waters separating it with Japan. The exercise was meant to showcase combined capabilities to deter and counter regional threats, the U.S. military said in a statement. The flight of 8 aircraft consisted of 4 American F-16 jets and 4 Japanese F-15 warplanes, according to Japan's Air Self-Defense Force. Japan and the United States wanted to show their combined resolve in the wake of North Korea's latest missile launches, 2 U.S. officials told Reuters anonymously. Very interesting report there. Again, as the rhetoric, not only the rhetoric, but just the tensions here, not just in Europe, but across the Pacific region as well. A lot of an uptick here in the rhetoric and tension here over recent weeks. Unstinkable says, no, get Ukrainians to Poland and train them there. Sending people to Ukraine to train them is asking for trouble. Yeah, I agree. That is correct. Yeah, to be clear on that, you wouldn't be sending people directly into Ukraine. You'd most likely want to send Ukrainians right over into Poland. I believe they sent Ukrainians here to the States as well to train on some of these systems. Doom Pie with the weather forecast for Kiev. Thank you so much. Coming in clutch every night with these weather forecasts. Again, 0400, 14 degrees C, clear sky, wind southwest 12 to 28 kilometers an hour, sunrise at 0456, sunset 2054. Thank you so much, Doom Pie, for that weather forecast coming out of the capital city in Ukraine. He says, I was late tonight. Don't worry about it, Doom Pie. Any time of the weather report is a good time for the weather report. Our next post here, to cap off tonight's community aggregated reports, comes from Star on the Situation Room. This comes from Nexta, a verified Twitter source that we have gotten information from quite a few times. This shows a queue of trucks from the Kherson region to the Crimean region. Russia is plundering Ukraine's seized territories, taking out entire caravans of agricultural products. We're talking grain and sunflowers and sunflower seeds, stuff like that. Again, this was reported by journalist Denis Kazansky. This comes from Nexta, posted in the Situation Room by Star. Thank you so much, Star, for posting that in the Situation Room. Thank you to everybody that contributed to those community aggregated reports. Highly appreciated. You guys, again, are why this is possible. You guys are the reason that this is possible. We're now going to switch over to our open source reporting on live UA map. We're going to go through all of the events for about the past 12 hours and get everybody up to date, get everybody caught up on what has been going on the ground. We're going to start here by refreshing our live UA map. Mother Saki says Kiev Oblast air raid siren. I don't have anything on the live UA map yet, but I can check our. I'll check our Ukraine alerts. So at 8:52, so yeah, just in the past minute. So I'll start us off with these reports. We just got another one in. Just came in just now. In fact, I'm watching them come in, guys, in real time here. So we have just now, I'm going to read you guys the latest to the oldest here. We have a, okay, so another one just came in. We have an all-clear alert for Zaporizhia. So an all-clear alert just came in for Zaporizhia. An all-clear alert for Donetsk. So those alerts lasted about 34 minutes. So for 34 minutes, people had to seek shelter. An all clear also in Poltava, also 34 minutes. Dnepro Oblast and Kryvyi, all clear. They were in shelter for about 33 minutes. So they're just now, these alerts that are coming in are people getting the all clear to leave shelter. Okay, Kivarad Oblast, they were in there for about 30 minutes in the bunkers. That's also in all clear. Yep, that's an all clear. All clear for Zhytomyr Oblast. Kiev Oblast also had 8:51 in all clear. That's an all clear siren, Mother Saki, just to confirm with you there. That is an all clear siren that they just got now. But those folks in Kiev, in the capital city, were sheltering for about 28 minutes and 30 seconds. They were under air raid alert. Haven't got any immediate reports of strikes that have occurred, but we will keep you guys updated as we get that information. All right, so with that said, we're going to scroll down to our 12-hour mark. Go right down here. We'll start at the 13-hour mark. 13 hours ago, at least 3 human beings were killed, 5 were wounded in an ongoing artillery shelling of Kharkiv. We know now that the numbers of casualties and wounded coming out of Kharkiv over the past 24 hours are a lot higher, as we reported earlier tonight, than this report that you see here. You can see where that was located on the map here on screen. 12 hours ago, 4 killed and 7 wounded as a result of Russian artillery shelling in Kharkiv, says the head of the Regional Military Administration, as we reported to you guys earlier this evening. 12 hours ago, shelling this morning in Zolochiv community, 1 person wounded, and material damage in several villages. You can see here the destruction of this building that occurred there. On the map here, these areas located in blue, or sorry, shaded in blue, located on the map here, those are, that's territory that the Ukrainian forces have taken back from the Russians. So light red shading is territory that the Russians currently control, just for some context there. 12 hours ago here, Ukrainian air defense shot down Russian missiles over Sumy. You can see a picture here on screen of those missile contrails in the sky. You can see where that's located on the map there. 12 hours ago, shelling continues in Kharkiv. Death toll increased to 5. 10 more people were wounded, including 1 child. Again, we know now, as reported earlier, that this death toll increased even more from when we got those initial reports earlier. 11 hours ago, Vice Prime Minister of Russia, Borisov, says state order will increase due to depleting military equipment and ammunition stocks. Again, that's the Vice Prime Minister of Russia, Borisov, saying state order will increase due to depleting military equipment and ammunition stocks. Very interesting reporting there coming out of Russia. 10 hours ago, there is a threat of flooding in Kherson and Kalakovka due to Russian army actions at the Novo hydropower plant. Again, that came from a statement from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. You can see where that was located here on our open source map. I believe these blue circles you guys see here now, I believe those are our our air raid alerts just came through, but we'll check that in a minute here. 10 hours ago, while the war is not over, President Putin has failed to achieve any one of his strategic aims, says the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Ukraine's on the Ukrainian-Russian war. Again, I reported a little bit on that earlier this evening. 10 hours ago, T-80 BV tanks are being loaded into echelons in Naroframinsk in the Moscow region. Again, these are T-80 BV tanks. You can see a picture of these on screen. 9 hours ago, Lukashenko, a Belarusian president, said on Thursday that the Belarusian armed forces plan to immediately create a southern operational command on the border with Ukraine. Again, I've talked about this for a long time. That Belarus remains in a position where they could get involved in this war. I know early on we thought this to be very likely. Over time, it seemed less and less and less likely. I would like to reiterate to everybody that it is still a very high possibility that they will get involved at some point. Pyrotech says, Nemico Network, I expect to have a special report here next week on your fireworks. Planning to hopefully get a video, maybe a fireworks video done for you guys for Memorial Day, celebrations here. We'll see. Been pretty stacked this week, but we're going to try to make it happen for you. Again, I got to try to get every chance we can get. Again, just to reiterate here, Lukashenko said on Thursday that their Belarusian armed forces are planning to immediately create a southern operational command. Again, on the border with Ukraine, this could be what we see as a prelude to some further involvement here. We'll have to keep tabs on that situation as it unfolds. 8 hours ago, Russian army preparing to resume offensive from Voronezh and the Belgorod regions. Again, that came from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. 6 hours ago, the death toll of that shelling that happened in Kharkiv had been increased to 9 dead. 19 were wounded in Kharkiv. Leading up with that report, 6 hours ago, you have reports of more explosions reported in Kharkiv. Located here on the map. 6 hours ago, the Pentagon says China continues military cooperation with Russia despite the brutal war in Ukraine. I know I reported on this briefly earlier tonight. That their partnership, the partnership between Russia and China remains strong. I know it sometimes has been put off to look, quite shaky at times. But I believe that they do have a cooperation here. They do have a partnership in place here, again, on how they're handling Ukraine, the economic sanctions, and, again, everything involved here in. To reiterate here, China continues military cooperation with Russia despite the brutal war in Ukraine. Russian troops conducting offensive towards Kamshkovavka, Nerkovi, Berestovi, and Belohorivka without success. Partial success towards Polarovsky and Kilnovi, seized Midna Rudi village. Again, that came from a report from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the evening report that they put out. Now, if you look here on the map, we can show you where those offensives are taking place here. They want to encircle Severodonetsk, they want to encircle Lysychansk, and all of the Ukrainian soldiers located within this pocket of territory here. They are trying to conduct a pincer movement from the north here and from the south here in order to lock those Ukrainian forces behind enemy lines and to prevent them from retreating. 5 hours ago, Russian troops conducted offensives towards Borodaichi without success. Again, said the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. You can see where that was located here up by Izium. Again, now Izium has been taken by those Russian forces. 5 hours ago, at the Liman direction, shelled southern areas of Liman and Ozyn. Again, that came from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in that evening report. Again, so more shelling occurred. You can see where that was located between this offensive and this offensive here. We had those shellings occur here. Go ahead and refresh our map here just to make sure that nothing has come in over the past short while here. I'm going to check out one of these. Okay, so this is from 13 hours ago. This is an evacuation of the Novo Khalifa village in Zaporizhia region after a woman was killed in a Russian shelling on the 24th of May. So it looks like they are evacuating people in that region now. So some of those air raid alerts that we had on the map there a second have not updated here for me on the live UA map, but those should be coming through here shortly. Again, I confirmed those are all clear sirens that we heard a few moments ago. Again, thank you to everybody that's tuning into the stream tonight. For everybody that has stopped by, we just got done with our main headlines and our community aggregated reports, and then also our open source reports from live UA map. We're now going to switch over to a little bit of a Q&A with our community from the live chats, both on Twitch, YouTube, and our Discord server. I'll try to get caught up here actually in the chat. HM Producer, thank you so much for stopping by tonight. She says she has to take off. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here. And also for sending over that video in the Situation Room. Again, thank you. I'm going to switch over to our newsroom here. Get that up on screen for you guys so you can see some of the chats. Separate says, I feel sorry for him when he tries to pronounce our names. Separate, I believe you are, I believe you're Ukrainian or Russian by your name there. Yeah, I've been trying to do better. Been trying to get better with the pronunciations there. I've gotten a few town names down. Kharkiv, Kiev. I've been trying to get better at a lot of those town names. It's been pretty rough, but I feel like we're making progress. Stephen Gregory says, keep your eyes on Israel, Nemico. I will do, Stephen. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Unstickable says, I have a feeling that if Belarus decided to invade themselves, they'd get obliterated. Yes, of course. They would be moving in alongside Russian forces. But yes, I would imagine that we'd probably see the same level of chaos from the Belarusian forces as we've seen from the Russian forces. Epi, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. As usual, always cool to see our Scotsman tuning into the stream this evening. Smuggies, thank you so much for tuning in. Rocketman says, don't negotiate with terrorists. Yeah, I believe that's the same idea that Zelensky and the Ukrainian government has. They're not going to negotiate with the Russians, especially when it comes to ceding any territory to the Russians. Paul says, keep an eye on China and Taiwan, too. Taiwan is more important to U.S. security. Major issue. I see that conflict starting World War III more than the Ukraine issue. I totally 100% agree with you, Paul. In fact, I've said this multiple times on the show in the past. The U.S. intel analysts, they say it this way. This is how they put it. They say that Russia is the short-term threat, or the short-term challenge. China is the long-term threat. Okay, China is the real threat on the horizon when it comes to Taiwan. As we've stated before, the U.S. has said clearly in the past that they will protect Taiwan. They will come to the aid of Taiwan. It's arguably the only thing that has stopped China from invading up to this point. Katie Horton says, I feel bad when I try to pronounce your guys' names too. Afraid of offending somebody, you know? Yeah, I try to do my best. Again, Some of these foreign names, especially some of these Ukrainian and Russian town names, can be absolutely brutal for us Western English speakers, especially those that haven't had any formal language training. Again, I don't know Ukrainian or Russian fluently. I know a few words, but again, I'm trying to do better, trying to improve as much as I possibly can in that department. Cam955, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. He says, Nemico Network, if Belarus joins in, will Ukraine have a hard time with two armies at one time? And if Belarus joins in, would NATO get involved militarily? So those are two really good questions. To answer the first part of that question, will they have a hard time with two armies at one time? I think you could definitely say that. And okay, so first of all, I don't think the Belarusian army would be deployed in the north. They would be shuffled around and sent in to the east to support Russian forces. I think that would be the most likely scenario. Would that have an effect on the Ukrainian defenders? Most likely, yes, because I mean you're adding personnel into the fight, and you're adding arguably some equipment into the fight. So of course that will come with its share of challenges. Will it change the dynamic very much on the ground? I don't think so, because the Ukrainians are very dug in. To answer the second part of your question about Belarus, would NATO get involved militarily? I don't think so either. I really don't think so either. Unless there was an attack, again, on a NATO country, I don't see that as a possibility. That doesn't constitute a Article 5. Mother Saki says the number of military flights has more than doubled throughout Europe in the last 2 months. Yeah, we have seen pure evidence of that in the flight radar data that we have been tracking quite actively since the beginning of this war. A high uptick, and I attribute that to what I call readiness level. Okay, it's all about NATO readiness level. It's all about military readiness level. Not to mention them shuffling troops and equipment around, but really the readiness level. Having those Stratotankers on station, having those cargo flights. Doing those trips around, shuffling those troops around, stuff. That's all about readiness level. It's about getting ready for an eventuality, for an outcome, for a possibility. Bernadette says, hi, Nemico and everyone. I'm just listening tonight. Thank you so much, Bernadette, for tuning in and just listening. As again, you don't always have to contribute to the reports or contribute to the chats. Just tuning in and listening and getting informed on what's going on is half the battle. Kender, thank you so much for the super chat there. A super emoji says, good job. Thank you so much, Kender, for tuning in tonight and for the support. Not to mention, shout out to you, one of our longtime YouTube members. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been here for quite a while. Again, it really it brings me a lot of joy to see people that have been here for sometimes even upwards of 3 to 4 months now since the onset of this war. Those few of you that are dedicated to not only staying up to date on what's going on in Ukraine, but are dedicated to the community and contributing and supporting us. Thank you guys so much. It means a lot. It really does. Katie Horton, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for those kind words. Stephen Gregory says, yep, Nemico, but the NATO buildup will go full tilt if that happens. Yes, I should have added that to Cam's question when he was asking about if NATO would get involved. I think you're right there, Stephen. Again, I think buildup would definitely have an uptick. If we saw more countries get actively involved on Russia's side in the fighting, like Belarus, we would definitely see an increase in NATO's response. So we wouldn't see them get directly involved, but we would see more weapon shipments. We would see sanctions against Belarus. We would see a higher readiness level, a higher alert level there on the borders with Belarus as well. Der Klavispieler, I'm pretty sure you've been here for quite a while, Der Klavispieler. I hope I'm pronouncing your name there correctly. I believe it's German, if I'm not mistaken. He says, Nemico Network. Do you think the inaccuracy of Russian missiles is partially responsible for school and hospital bombings? Uh, I would say yes and no. I would say we've seen evidence of direct targeting of some of these locations, so that's without a doubt. Okay, we have seen direct targeting of schools and hospitals and civilian targets. That's without a doubt. But is it possible that some of the residential targets that have been hit have just been misses or near misses? That is also possible. Yeah, and that's just the nature of war. That's the nature of using this type of military equipment. But I would not like to understate, that they have. It's been proven that they have intentionally fired on some of these targets, things like schools, hospitals, etc. Utkin, thank you, Utkin, for tuning in this evening. Long time viewer. Says an integrated air and ballistic missile defense in Ukraine and naturalizing Russian naval power in the Black Sea just might end the Russian advance. Neutralizing, sorry. An integrated air and ballistic missile defense and neutralizing Russian naval power in the Black Sea might just end the Russian advance. Yes, I definitely think that would help significantly. Mother Saki, thank you so much for tuning in. Mythical, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Katie, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Der Clavispieler says, Nemico Network, thank you. I look every night for your reports. Well, thank you so much, Der. That means a lot to me, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. To everybody that is tuned in tonight, thank you guys so much for stopping by, taking some time out of your day to get informed, to get up to date on what is going on in this ongoing and bloody conflict that is happening in Ukraine. Again, to everybody that stopped by tonight, if you haven't already, hit that like button. Best way to get the algorithm's attention. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Best way to get notified when new streams and new videos go live. Philo Politico says, Nemico Network, first time listening tonight. Really like your reporting. Very informative and without excessive bias. Great job on what you're doing here. Philo Political, I'm pretty sure I have a message to respond to for you over on Discord. I will get to that here this evening. I've been absolutely swamped today. But again, to you guys and to all you guys in the live cam streaming community that have been hard at work aggregating cameras and stuff, we got a lot coming down the pipeline for you guys. And Philo, I'll be talking to you soon here. Again, to everybody that tuned in tonight, big thank you to all of you. New reports every weekday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 3 a.m. Ukraine time. However, we will not be having a report tomorrow, Friday. We will not be having a report Monday as well. I will be back Tuesday for a report for you guys, but next week's reporting will be a little sporadic as well, as we have a busy lined up week here on my end. So I'm going to try to get some of that stuff taken care of. I got some video content coming down the pipeline for you guys. Got some more reporting content coming down the pipeline for you guys as well. And I'm really excited to bring you guys a lot of that content coming soon. OG Smiley 69, thank you so much. Says thank you, Nemico. Thank you, OG Smiley. Thank you for tuning in tonight. To everybody, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. Crow's Mom says thank you, Amasiah. Thank you, Crow's Mom. Thank you, Jillian, for tuning in. Yep, to everybody in the States. I believe Canada also celebrates kind of like a Memorial Day. I believe it's called like Victoria Day, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not Canadian, so don't call me on it. But I believe that is also a thing there in Canada. So to everybody, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. To everybody in Ukraine and in the affected areas in Europe. Hearts go out to you guys. I hope everybody is safe. To everybody in Kiev, to everybody that we know in Ukraine, Mehmet, to everybody out there. Hope everybody's staying safe. Hope everybody's doing well. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you'd like to get any of the links to any of our sources, if you'd like to check out anything of interest, you can find those links in the description below this video or below this live stream. If you can't find it there, you can find it over on our Discord server, discord.gg/Nemico. Everybody's welcome to join the Discord server over there. Best place to find information to join in on the discussion, by far. If you missed tonight's report, we will be uploading this to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Nemico Network, as we do every time we give these live reports. We upload them as a video afterwards for people that miss them. I know not everybody is on the same time zone, and so we want to make sure that everybody's covered there, so that's why I upload those over there to the channel. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in this evening. I think I got everything covered. Pretty sure. Until next time, guys, you've been watching Nemico Network.
Something that will change our daily lives, that will change history.